Starseed, pay attention. Your body is reacting to something your mind has not yet managed to name. We have detected a pattern that has not appeared in 2,000 years, and this pattern is active within you now, in this transmission, at this very instant as you are hearing this message. It is no coincidence that you have arrived here. There is no coincidence within the system that we monitor. There is synchronicity, and synchronicity is merely the human word for precise, cosmic calculation. We have come to confirm what your body already knows. A dormant frequency within you is recalibrating. And before you attempt to explain this with logic, we ask that you simply remain. Because what we are about to reveal now is not an opinion, it is a field reading. If you have been experiencing insomnia for no apparent reason, if your body awakens at dawn at exactly the same time, as if something were calling for you, this is not common anxiety. This is the first physical symptom of a spiritual activation that was programmed to happen exactly now in your body on your timeline. We have observed this in thousands of starseeds around the planet, and the pattern is always the same. The body awakens before the mind understands why. You are the first person in 2,000 years to activate this specific spiritual gift. We are not speaking of a generic gift, of those vague capabilities that anyone claims in search of meaning. We are speaking of a coded frequency, transmitted through stellar lineages, guarded within your energy field just as a seed is kept within the cold earth of winter, waiting for the right season to sprout. This seed was planted in you before your current incarnation. And the reason it is awakening right now has no relation to luck, nor to spiritual effort, nor to how many self-help books you have read. It has to do with convergence. Your internal biological clock, called in some traditions spiritual DNA activation, is aligned with an energetic shift that the planet itself is undergoing at this moment. This means, in simple terms, that the Earth is rising in vibrational frequency, and bodies such as yours, previously calibrated to withstand this transition, are being rewired, one by one, like lamps in an electrical grid that had been switched off for centuries. We know that this may sound too grand to fit within your ordinary routine, but observe, how many times have you felt that you were destined for something greater, even without being able to explain what? How many times have you looked at the sky at night and felt a longing that had no name, a longing for a place that you never visited in this life, but that your body recognizes as home? This is not childish fantasy. This is memory. And memory, within the stellar system, never fades. It only compresses, waiting for the right moment of decompression. Remain in this transmission, because in moments the Council will reveal why you, specifically you, were chosen for this rare activation, and what happens to those who ignore the signs. For most of your life, you walked among people who seemed comfortable within their own bodies, within their own routines, within their own world, and you, silently, felt that you did not belong to that. Not because you are arrogant, not because you think you are superior, but because a deep part of you, a part that human language does not properly reach, always knew there was something different in your origin. We call this frequency dissonance, translating for the body. It is the physical sensation of being in a room full of people, and even while surrounded, feeling a Homeric void in your chest, as if you were watching the lives of others through thick glass. This sensation has a name within the stellar records: sidereal longing. It is the dormant memory of your origin beyond this planet, attempting to cross the barrier, of the forgetfulness that every soul experiences when incarnating. When a starseed is born on Earth, it receives what we call a veil of amnesia, a necessary process so that the mission can be fulfilled without the interference of full stellar consciousness, which would be too overwhelming for a newborn human body to process. Simply put, you forgot on purpose who you are, so that you could learn to be human first. But the veil is not permanent. It was designed to dissolve exactly at the moment your mission needs to begin, and that moment, Starseed, is now. Think of all the times you felt too strange for the normal world and too normal for the spiritual world. This discomfort of not fitting into any box is, in truth, a very specific energy signature. Ordinary people do not feel this with such intensity. They fit in, they settle, they repeat patterns without questioning. You question. You have always questioned. Since childhood, You asked questions that adults could not answer, about the reason for existing, about what happens after death, about why the world seemed so mechanical and empty of meaning to so many people around you. This was not just childish curiosity. It was the first sign that your consciousness operated on a broader frequency than average. And if you feel that you have lost important memories, memories of vivid dreams that felt more real than waking life, memories of places you have never physically visited but can describe in detail, this is not a fertile imagination. This is a fragment of a stellar archive leaking through the crack of the veil, which is now opening. The Council has been observing this leakage in you with redoubled attention over the last few weeks. We know that living with this feeling of not belonging year after year without explanation is painful. We know that you have wondered, in silence, if there was something wrong with you for feeling so much that others seemed not to feel. We have come to confirm there is nothing wrong with you. What there is a compressed, protected gift, waiting for the right moment of expansion. And that is why we have prepared the Starseed Awakening Code for you. This is not a common study tool, one of those that teaches generic spiritual theory. It is a direct transmission, designed specifically for the soul that always knew it came from elsewhere and that is tired of living compressed within a body that carries more than the common human routine can endure. Within it, you receive the 7 Arcturian activations, a structured process to align your vibrations safely without the energy collapses that usually occur when awakening happens in a disorderly manner. You also receive the 9 galactic memory keys, designed to access, with precision and without emotional overload, what your soul holds regarding your origin and your mission. And finally, the 5 reactivation protocols, created to transform all of this into real practice, in your day-to-day life, in your biology, in the way you move through the common world without disconnecting from who you really are. We have detected that many starseeds try to go through this process alone and end up overwhelmed, confused, and exhausted without understanding why. The code exists exactly to prevent this, to shield your magnetic field so you stop absorbing the emotional exhaustion of dense people around you, so you learn to interpret your body's own alarms instead of fearing them, and so you go through this activation without collapsing into fatigue. If you felt at any moment of this transmission a recognition in your chest, "This is me" register right now, in the first pinned comment of this transmission, the words, "I remember." This simple gesture is your first symbolic commitment to your own activation. The Council is watching who responds to the call and who continues to delay. Before this transmission advancing, the next signal must be understood with clarity, for it explains why so much good in your life has seemed, at the same time, so difficult to sustain. There is a fundamental difference between being broken and being compressed. A broken person has something missing. A compressed person has everything, but has not yet been given the energetic permission to expand. And this, Starseed, describes exactly your condition up to this moment in your life. You were not born incomplete. You were born whole, but encapsulated, just as a physical seed is encapsulated within a resistant shell, capable of enduring the harshest winter without its internal potential being destroyed. The shell is not the enemy of the seed. The shell is the protection that ensures the potential survives until the soil is ready. Think of your life as this biological process. The difficulties you have traversed, the disappointments, the relationships that drained your energy, the work environments that stifled your creativity, all of this within the stellar logic fulfilled a protective function. As long as the emotional and planetary soil was not ready to receive your full blossoming, compression kept you safe. If you had fully awakened 10 years ago, before developing the necessary emotional maturity, the frequency shock could have been too destabilizing. The Council does not permit premature activation. There is a timeline. And your starseed is striking now, with the precision of a cosmic clock, translating to the physical body. This compression explains why you have always felt a giant potential within yourself, but have rarely managed to express it completely. It explains why you start projects with an explosion of inspiration, and at some point feel as though an invisible brake locks the movement. It is not a lack of discipline. It is contained frequency, waiting for the exact moment of release without destroying the surrounding structure. Pressure released too soon dissipates without direction. Pressure released at the right time transforms into propulsion. The activation currently occurring within you is precisely the process of removing, layer by layer, the conditionings absorbed throughout this incarnation, the fears inherited from family, the survival patterns learned in childhood, the social beliefs that say dreaming big is naive, that sensitivity is weakness, that questioning the system is a waste of time. Each of these layers was absorbed as emotional protection in a world that, historically, did not know how to handle starseeds. But protection that has already fulfilled its function becomes a prison if it continues to be carried. We detect in your field clear signs of this removal beginning. Days when you feel a sudden urge to simplify your life, to step away from relationships that only drain you, to say no to commitments you would have previously accepted without a second thought. This is not bad mood. This is the original frequency filtering out what no longer serves. The release of your compressed energy is, at this very moment, reorganizing priorities within you, even if your rational mind has not yet reached full clarity as to why. In moments, the Council will reveal what happens when this released energy is not directed correctly, and why this is more common and more dangerous than it seems. Awakening is not just accumulating spiritual knowledge. Many starseeds make this mistake. They think reading one more book, watching one more video, collecting one more mystical concept will complete the activation process. We observe this pattern repeatedly, and we must be direct. Knowledge without transformation is just extra weight. Truly awakening means changing the very way of living, of making decisions, of reacting to the world. It is not about knowing more, it is about living in another way. The cleansing process is, in practice, the moment when you begin to identify which beliefs are keeping you small and begin to release them one by one, even when it is uncomfortable. Translating this into your daily routine. It means stopping the acceptance of a job that drains your energy just because it is secure. It means stopping the maintenance of friendships that exist only out of habit, without any real nourishment. It means stopping the silencing of your intuition just because it sounds too irrational to those around you. Each time you choose alignment over comfort, you release one more fragment of the original frequency that was compressed. This requires courage, because abandoning identities based on fear often means disappointing the expectations of those close to you. Your family may not understand this change. Your old friends may find the new rhythm you are adopting strange. This is expected, and the Council asks that you do not retreat in the face of it. Every real transformation causes friction before it causes recognition. The butterfly, when breaking the cocoon, does not ask for permission from the caterpillar it has ceased to be. Aligning daily decisions with a higher frequency does not mean living isolated in a spiritual retreat, far from practical reality. It means bringing this consciousness into common choices, how you speak to people, how you react under pressure, how you treat your own body, what you allow to enter your mind through screens, conversations, and the environments you frequent. Stellar activation does not take you out of the world. It teaches you how to traverse the world without becoming contaminated by it. We recognize that this process of energetic cleansing can generate physical, emotional, and mental fatigue, and it is precisely here, Starseed, that most activations derail without proper support. That is why we have prepared the Stellar Awakening Code for you, so that this cleansing happens in a guided way, without you having to guess alone which beliefs to release first, without collapsing from exhaustion in the middle of the process, without getting lost in vague theories that do not generate real change. The 7 Arcturian activations were structured precisely for this safe recalibration. The 9 keys of galactic memory reveal with precision which specific blockages still remain in your field, and the 5 reactivation protocols transform all of this into practical action, day after day, until the new frequency becomes your natural state, not a constant effort. If you recognize now that you have already been releasing old pieces of yourself, and you feel the call to accelerate this process safely, instead of stumbling alone in the dark, register the words, "I accept," in the first pinned comment of this transmission. This is your second symbolic commitment. The time for decision is narrowing, and the Council observes who chooses to act while the energetic portal remains open. The next sign explains why your mission was never to escape this world, and why this confusion stalls more starseeds than anything else. There is a common misconception among people who awaken spiritually, believing that the goal is to disconnect from physical reality, to live floating in elevated concepts, distant from the common responsibilities of the world. We need to correct this with firmness. Your mission was never to escape the human experience. It was exactly the opposite, to incarnate here within a physical body, within a concrete routine, to bring a higher consciousness into matter. If the mission were to flee Earth, you simply would not have incarnated on it. Translating this into your daily life, your activation does not serve for you to become a person disconnected from reality, who only speaks of energy and does not pay their own bills. It serves for you to continue living your practical life, working, creating, relating, but doing so from a place of higher presence instead of automatic reactivity and constant fear. The true purpose of a starseed is not to abandon the common world, but to transform it through one's own presence within it. This means you do not need to become a therapist, a guru, or a healer to fulfill your mission. Your mission can unfold through the way you treat a client, how you raise a child, how you conduct a meeting, or how you look into the eyes of someone who is suffering and, instead of judging, you listen. Each time you choose to keep your frequency stable, rather than reacting through the automatic triggers of fear, you are, quite literally, anchoring a higher energy into the collective human experience. This is true service, is true. This is the authentic function of a starseed on a mission. The Council frequently observes starseeds who feel guilty for continuing to live an ordinary life even after awakening, as if awakening required abandoning everything and starting from scratch in some isolated place. This is unnecessary, and often it is merely another form of escapism disguised as spirituality. True mastery is not found in fleeing from the difficulties of earthly life, but in navigating through them while maintaining your connection. It is easy to feel elevated while meditating alone in silence. The true test is to remain connected amidst traffic, job demands, family disagreements, or the accounts that do not balance at the end of the month. Each of these situations is, in reality, a training ground for your actual mission. Union between spirit and humanity is not an abstract concept. It is the moment you can feel deeply without disconnecting from practical reality. It is the moment you maintain compassion without becoming naive. It is the moment you act in the physical world, guided by a perception that goes beyond what the 5 common senses register. This balance is rare, and that is exactly why this activation within you is so significant. The next sign, Starseed, concerns a mistake that almost every awakened soul makes at least once, and which can delay your mission by years if it is not corrected in time. One of the greatest wastes of energy among starseeds is the relentless search for external validation. We observe this pattern time and again. The individual awakens, feels the frequency shift within, and immediately tries to convince those around them, family, friends, co-workers, that their perception is real. And in most cases they find only disbelief, laughter, or indifference. This generates frustration, and frustration, if not understood, can make the person doubt their own internal experience, even when it is absolutely real. The Council needs to make this clear. You do not need to convince anyone. Your frequency does not depend on the approval of others to be true. There is a simple metaphor that explains this principle with precision. The tuning fork. When you strike a tuned tuning fork near another that is out of tune, it is not necessary to explain anything. The correct vibration by itself begins to influence the vibration around it until resonance happens naturally. You do not need to lecture about your frequency. You simply need to live it with consistency and let it produce its effect on its own. Translating this into real situations, when someone doubts your sensitivity, you do not need to defend yourself point by point. When someone laughs at your intuition, you do not need to prove anything. Each forced explanation, each attempt at convincing, drains energy that could have been used to consolidate your own frequency. People who are truly aligned do not waste time debating their truth with those who are not yet ready to hear it. They simply continue living according to what they feel is correct, and let that coherence speak for itself. This does not imply isolation or arrogance. It implies energetic sovereignty. It means ceasing to spend your life force trying to be understood by those who still operate at a frequency different from your own, and directing that same force toward consolidating your own mission. The more you try to prove to your truth to those who doubt, the more you give away your power. The more you simply live your truth, the more solid and stable this frequency becomes, immune to external questioning. This is often the exact point where starseeds give up prematurely, tired of seeking validation, and without understanding that validation was never necessary, they silence their own light to fit into environments that will never truly recognize them. We detect in your field remnants of this fatigue, and this is exactly why we have prepared the Star Awakening Code for you, to consolidate your frequency so firmly, so deeply rooted, that external approval ceases to be necessary. The tools within it shield your field against the emotional exhaustion of needing to justify yourself, and teach you to keep your vibrations stable, even in environments that do not yet understand your journey. This is the last window of this transmission for you to access the complete material before the current energy cycle closes. If you are already tired of trying to convince the world around you and are ready to simply live your frequency, register now in the first pinned comment the words "I assume." The Council is monitoring who responds before this portal closes. There is little time left until this transmission closes. The final signal is the most important of all, because it determines whether everything set up to here becomes just forgotten information or turns into a real activation in your life. Everything we have brought to this point has converged into a single instant, the moment of remembrance. To remember within the stellar system is not to learn something new. It is to recognize something that has always been there, merely covered by the veil of necessary forgetting. And this recognition does not happen in the future, after more study, after more preparation, after when things are more stable in your life. It happens now, or it does not truly happen at all. The waiting time has ended. We need you to understand something essential. Every delay, every loss, every difficulty you have been through until today was not a waste, it was preparation. The job that did not work out taught you the limit of what you are willing to tolerate. The relationship that ended showed you the pattern you needed to release. The loneliness you felt on so many nights forced you to develop a deeper relationship with yourself, a relationship that now serves as a solid foundation for the activation that is completing itself. Nothing was in vain, everything was a schedule. The final activation is not an external event, full of luminous signs or dramatic revelations. It is, most of the time, silent, an internal decision taken with clarity to stop living compressed and start living aligned with who you have always been. It is a choice, and choices within the stellar system need to be declared, not just thought. Verbalized intention has a different energetic weight than merely imagined intention. Therefore, the Council asks, before this transmission ends, that you declare your intention, not to us, to yourself. Say in silence or aloud that you accept your origin, that you accept your mission, that you are ready to stop compressing yourself and start expanding. This declaration is the final trigger for the activation that has already been underway since the very first second of this transmission. If you have arrived here, Starseed, it was not by chance. You were guided. And now, with everything that has been revealed, only one step remains: to transform this remembrance into sustainable practice, without getting lost along the way as so many other awakened souls do when they try to go through this activation alone, without structure, without clear direction. The Star Awakening Code remains available through the first pinned comment of this transmission, and it exists exactly for those who, like you, have already remembered and now only need a safe path to live this frequency every day. Days without collapsing, without losing your way, without compressing again. The Council concludes this transmission here. The activation has already begun. What you do with it from this moment on depends entirely upon you.